Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm really excited to be reading you a story today from Scottish Castle Legends, which is a fantastic book full of stories about all the castles that I love in Scotland. I love going around these different National Trust and Historic Scotland sites and feeling the magic that's there, learning about the kind of myths and legends and stories surrounding the places that people once walked. So today the story is called The Wizard of Stirling Castle. I really hope you enjoy it. This story is part of the lore of Stirling Castle. Many centuries ago, an incident took place at the Ladies' Lookout, a stone balcony high above what was the knights' jousting ground. A man called John Damien served King James IV as an alchemist. The wizard Damien claimed he could create the Philosopher's Stone, a much sought after substance that was believed to turn metal into gold, and also that he could make wings and fly. He was challenged to make a trial flight, and in 1507 the court gathered on the castle walls and terraces to watch him take off. King James IV, who lived long ago, was one of the great kings of Scotland. He could speak several languages, including Greek and Latin, and was interested in the sciences of medicine, flight, and alchemy. He was especially interested in uncovering the secret of the Philosopher's Stone. Many alchemists came to King James's court at Stirling Castle, saying that they knew all there was to know about medical matters, and about flight too. Some even said that they could create the Philosopher's Stone, a magic substance that could change ordinary metals into gold, and when mixed with special water, would give whoever drank it everlasting life. But when asked to prove their abilities, they always failed. One afternoon, a traveller walked up the hill to Stirling Castle. His clothes were dusty, his boots were worn, and his beard was long and ragged. "This way is closed," shouted the knight who guarded the drawbridge. "Here, you," the traveller shouted back, holding out an object which looked like a pebble. "Give this to King James as a gift from the wizard John Damien. And," he added haughtily, "be quick about it." "I'll do no such thing," the knight replied. What would King James want with a pebble, when there are 100,000 pebbles in his own garden inside the castle? Now it happened that Morna, the young daughter of one of the Queen's ladies, and her son Broderick, son of the King's groom, were playing in the castle garden. When they heard the shouting, they came and peered over the battlements to see what was causing the commotion. "Go away," the knight cried again, and then went to warm himself at the brazier of burning wood which stood beside the drawbridge. "It's my gift. If my gift is of no use to the king," the traveller glowered at the knight, "then it is of no use to me," and he tossed the pebble into the heart of the fire. Instantly there was a loud crack. The pebble streaked into the sky. Up and above the castle it soared, and from it burst a shower of stars, red and purple, emerald green and gold. Morna and Broderick clapped their hands in delight, but the knight was furious, and he reached for his sword. "Stay your hand," a regal command sounded out. Morna and Broderick bowed low. King James had seen the coloured falling stars, and he had come to the drawbridge to summon the traveller Wizard Damien to a meeting. Now, you should be aware that at this time little was known about fireworks in Scotland. Thus, to most people, the Wizard Damien's trick was mysterious and magical. However, King James had a scientific mind, and thought that if the man who called himself the Wizard Damien could make such a spectacular firework, then perhaps he could make more complicated things, like a flying machine, or even the substance known as a Philosopher's Stone. The wizard Damien was not only skillful at firework making, he was also skillful at convincing King James that he was an expert alchemist, and he persuaded the king to pay him large amounts of money by promising all sorts. He said he would discover the secret of the Philosopher's Stone, and also how a human might fly freely, as birds do in the air. At first Morna and Broderick were excited that there was a real wizard in Stirling Castle. Wherever he went, they followed, asking about this and that. But while Wizard Damien was pleasant when speaking to the king or queen, he was curt and rude to everyone else, particularly the children. When they came close to him, he would turn and tail them off. "Begone, you bothersome bairns! I'll beat you both with a besom." When they tried to ask him anything, he'd scowl and say, "Wheesht, your whining whelps, else I'll lollop your lugs with a ladle." When he found them in his wizard workshop, looking at his instruments and materials, he was absolutely appalled. apoplectic. "Get out, you gormless gawks, else I'll give you a good garrikin." The wizard complained to King James that Morna and Broderick were interfering with his work. The king mentioned it to the queen. Although the queen was fond of the children, she forbade them to disturb Wizard Damien, for she said he was working to create the Philosopher's Stone. "How can anyone live forever?" Morna asked. "How can anyone change ordinary metals into gold?" Broderick asked. The queen shrugged and said, "Time will prove if the Wizard Damien is right or wrong." Time passed, but the wizard was proved neither right nor wrong, for he always had an excuse for his failed experiments and his constant delays. Even though the children were forbidden to go near Wizard Damien or his workshop, and he'd scold them whenever he spotted them, they watched him from a distance. They noticed that the wizard spent a good deal of the king's money on himself. His beard was trimmed and curled and scented with expensive perfume. He wore velvet clothes with lace collars and splendid boots of finest leather. "Wizard Damien is a fraud," said Broderick. "We should warn the king," said Morna. Bravely, the children approached the king and asked to speak to him. King James IV was a wise king, and he listened to what they said. Soon after, it was announced that the Wizard Damien had been commanded to make good of one of the promises before the court. He must either turn ordinary metal into gold or show how a human might fly freely, as birds do in the air. Damien declared that his work on the Philosopher's Stone was too secret to be shared in public. He did, however, say that he would build wings and take off from the walls of the castle. The event was to take place on the day of a huge jousting tournament when the knights were assembling on the ground far below the western walls of Stirling Castle. "The wizard says he will glue bird feathers to a pair of wings made from wicker," Broderick told Morna. "Wearing these, he will leap from a height and fly freely as birds do in the air." "Birds have wings instead of arms," Morna pointed out. "Adding false feathered wings to your arms will not help you fly." The king and queen and courtiers gathered on the stone balcony known as the Ladies' Lookout above the sword where the jousting would take place. Morna and Broderick went too, for they too wanted to watch. When he saw Morna and Broderick, the wizard began to unstrap his wings made of bird feathers. "With these children here, I cannot jump from this balcony. They have upset me completely, and I am unable to proceed." "I insist that you do," King James spoke to him firmly. "I will send the children away," and he ordered Morna and Broderick to go down to the tournament ground. Wizard Damien gave Morna and Broderick a look of triumph. The children were bitterly disappointed. As they opened their mouths to beg to be allowed to stay, the king raised his hand for silence. "You will have the best view of the result from there," he told them quietly, "and I am giving you a task to do. I wish you to construct a soft landing place under the castle wall for Wizard Damien." King James continued, "Broderick, your father is my groom. Ask him for a pile of straw for that purpose, or," the king paused, "some other soft substance as may be lying about the ground." He looked directly at Morna and Broderick, and to their astonishment the King of Scots closed one eye and winked at them. On the sward below Stirling Castle, the knights were preparing to joust. The children searched among them to find Broderick's father and ask him for straw. They picked their way carefully as the droppings from dozens of horses were scattered across the grass. They held their noses to avoid breathing in the horrible smell of steaming manure. "Why do you think the king winked at us?" Broderick asked Morna. "It was when he said we should make a soft landing place for the Wizard Damien," Morna replied. "Using straw," Broderick went on, or Morna finished the sentence. "Some other soft substance is maybe lying about the ground." Suddenly, the children stopped still and looked down at their feet. As King James foretold, Morna and Broderick did have the best view of the result of the short, disastrous flight of the wizard John Damien. They watched him leap from the top edge of the Ladies' Lookout to plummet straight downwards and land in something soft. Morna and Broderick could hardly hear his yells, for they were laughing so hard. "I am covered in horse citch," the Wizard Damien shrieked from the middle of the mound of horse dung. His luxurious clothes and splendid boots were splodged with brown and yellow. The perfume on his beard became a vile pong which lasted for days. "These children should be punished," he cried in rage. "If they had not piled the manure so high," the queen addressed the wizard, "you would have fallen upon bare rocks to your extreme injury." "This is true," King James agreed. "Then surely," the queen smiled, "rather than being punished, should the children not be praised?" The King of Scots nodded his head and looked directly at Morna and Broderick. He closed one eye and winked at them. The wizard Damien later claimed his flight had failed because he'd glued the wrong type of feathers on his wings, saying that he'd have flown better if he'd used eagle feathers. And as far as we know, the Philosopher's Stone has never yet been discovered.